Hello and welcome to another edition of Fide's podcast. My name is Jerry Serino and I'm your host, and I'm here with talent on loan from Rush. My grandmother was warning me about communism and the evils of communism as far back as I could remember, when my siblings and cousins and I would just kind of roll our eyes when she would talk about it. But as I maybe mentioned on this show before, as I got older, I came to realize really how correct my grandmother was about the evils of communism and the understanding of it and what it is and what it's all about. My guest today is Michael Peyton. He has some really unique experience in being in a cult and is seeing today how the sort of cult mentality is impacting people in our society and leading us uh, towards communism, socialism, what have you. And he also has a book called My Family, a Cult, and Trump. So if you're not intrigued just by the title, you should be, and you should take a look at it. So Michael Peyton, thanks for coming on.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I wrote the book. I had experience with a cult for 5 years. It was like a nightmare, but it was, looking back, it was a good experience because I learned a lot about human nature, courage. It's a very rare commodity, it seems, and just how people react when they're in a cult. And communism, I think communism is kind of like a giant cult. It's a lot of disinformation that people buy into, sort of like the cult. You know, you keep telling people certain things over the years and they get to believe them. And even there was a guy, a Russian defector. I don't know when he defected, 1970, 1980, something like that. He defected to the West, and he warned the West about disinformation coming into our schools. Now, you got to think the Russians weren't stupid. They don't want to start a world war. You can't fight the U.S., otherwise you annihilate everybody. That's no good. So, America, the West is an open society. So they can come in here, they can manipulate. It's a free society. You can say what you want. Nobody's going to shut you up. So they got into the schools. This guy warned us about I guess the people coming into the schools, coming into the system, and starting with the academia and the students. And in one generation, he said when he was here, he couldn't believe how successful it was. I mean, kids are coming out now extolling the virtues of socialism, communism. It's unbelievable. And I saw the same. And he also said that you can hit people over the head with the facts and figures, and once they buy into a way of thinking, you can't get them out of it. Human nature is really weird like that. I mean, look, you see what's happening with the border. It's obvious. You see what's happening with the economy, but it's all hate on Trump. And it's just disinformation from the media. The media has been corrupted, I think. The whole system seems to have been corrupted. And I don't know a way out of it, really.
Yeah, really good points. And what I've found so intriguing about what you're talking about here is everything that you're saying: misinformation, lies, manipulation, right? Telling people something at a young age, getting into the schools, is everything that we're dealing with right now. And what it took me to, there's so much that we can talk about as far as misinformation, but something, and I haven't seen that you commented specifically on COVID-19 and the reaction to it, but what we saw from COVID-19 was censorship. We saw that we were told things as though they were factual, and when the truth came out, instead of admitting, hey, maybe we were wrong about something, the government just stuck with it, and they just pretended that the facts weren't there. Is that pride? Is that what you're talking about as far as they?
It's interesting you say that. That's exactly the dynamic that I'm talking about. I mean, the media's controlled. They're corrupted. They push out only one side of the information. They don't say all good about the government, all good about the COVID vaccine. There's lots of information out there, but if you even questioned it, you were accused of misinformation. That's a classic Soviet tactic, or at least it was. I think now it's Chinese. I think they're the bigger threat.
Yeah.
But It's a classic Soviet tactic. They shut you down not by arguing the facts or presenting the other side's information, which I see in the justice system too, which is really scary. Like you see in the justice system, the facts don't seem to matter. It's the feelings. The Constitution, everything's against the Constitution now. Like you guys, that Constitution is the most beautiful document in the history of the world. And they're just ignoring it. And like someone said, I can't remember who said it, that it's only people. Like it's a document, but the people in charge are only people. So you've got to really be careful of people corrupting it. And that's what's happened. That they're in the power. And with the COVID vaccine, there's all this misinformation. And now you see people buy into it because of the propaganda, constant propaganda of one side. And now you've got your average person angry for people that don't want to take it, and there's all kinds of stuff on the COVID vaccine that's doesn't add up,
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's concerning is that when you have people that haven't, let's say there's the two sides to the vaccine, right? Some people say you have to take it, it works, it's perfect. Other people, may say it's bad, it doesn't work. And then you had people in between that said, like me, said, I just want to wait. I don't know. I'm healthy. I'm young. This is a brand new vaccine. Before I put something in my body, I just want to think about it, see what the results are over time. I'm not likely to die tomorrow, even if I got COVID. But they shut down any of that. Right. There wasn't even allowed to be a discussion. And we could take this into global warming. We can take it into the economy, as you mentioned early on, all these things that have been really provably a failure. And we could even include the Biden administration.
Yeah. If you look at it, who benefits? Like, I think it's all by design. I think it's all by design. Like, it's bringing down society as we know it. Like, it's breaking down all the corners of our free society. And I think it's by design, to be honest. I don't think Russia is a threat now. I think it's all coming from China. China is the biggest threat. They're in everywhere. Well, I spent some time in Nicaragua. They're down there. They were talking about building another canal to compete with the Panama Canal. But they're putting money into all these different countries and buying off politicians as they go. I think it's all by design. I mean, if you want to destroy a country, holy cow, man, it's working. Like, look at the borders. I mean, it's obvious what's happening to the borders if these people would just look at the border. I mean, people are flooding in. I mean, we had to get COVID vaccinations. Otherwise, we lost our jobs. As Canadians, we couldn't travel unless we went to walk. We couldn't travel, but people coming in across the border weren't required to take the vaccine. Like, what is that? Right. It's got to be by design, man. And I hate to say it, but I think your president now is corrupted beyond belief. He seems to be doing it. He seems to be doing the bidding of the Chinese.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. And that's even, speaking of misinformation, the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing was told misinformation, conspiracy theory, and of course, by no stretch of the imagination. But I want to ask, so this is what's curious to me about it. And obviously, if you look at, say, Russia, China, who want to influence the United States, for example, to pursue some of these stupid policies, or you're saying, to destroy us in a sense, why are the American politicians interested in that?
The politicians nowadays have no guts. They're in it for the money, I believe, and they're all bought off. And if you're bought off, you're in the pocket of the Chinese or whoever, and I think they're all in it for themselves. They don't really, it takes a strong voice to stand up, because look, if you start promising people everything, like all kinds of free stuff, you're probably going to get elected. If you get tough and say, this is what we need to do, although I wish somebody would do it like Trump, this is what we need to do to get the country back on track. The system doesn't want them in there, and they'll do anything, and they control the media, they control the education. Like anybody coming out of university now, it's pathetic. Even law school, they completely ignore the rule of law and evidence. They just go right to feelings and I don't know what's happened. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I wrote in my book a lot about my family growing up in the 60s and 50s, completely free in the country. And it was great. And I feel sorry for kids now. I mean, there's rules for everything. They're micromanaging everything you do. It's not a free country anymore. I used to say to my friend from Nicaragua when I was down, it's a communist country. It's like more like a dictatorship now, I'd say, with Daniel Ortega. But when I was there, I actually felt more free there than I do in Canada.
Times you're from Canada. You're right now currently you're in Canada.
Yeah.
Just as a point of reference, I want to ask a little bit about in a second about your experience in the cult and what got you in there, in the like in a second. But I want to. So I wanted to ask you about the country today. You're saying we're not very free. We're basically a communist country. When I think about, and I did a post on this, I think a year ago, and I said our greatest threat, our greatest fear is the left in this country, or the Democrat Party. It's not Russia. What do we have to fear from Russia? And if we look at Russia, why do we hate Putin? Well, we say he's corrupt. He enriches himself and his friends, right? He gives sweetheart deals. He lies. He imprisons his political opponents. He stops free speech, freedom of religion. And I sit here and I name all those things off, and I say, wait a minute, that's what we're doing here. That's what Canada's doing. All of those things, all of those reasons why we hate Putin, we're doing. The Democrat Party in this country and the left in your country, they're doing all of those things. Am I wrong?
Can you believe Justin Trudeau with the trucker convoy, right? First of all, he called them all right-wing extremists, just for standing up to his government. But then he went. What did he do? He stopped the bank accounts of people that even supported the truckers. That's totally socialist communism. This guy is not good. It's not good. That's
well, we had the same experience here with January 6th and the lies that were told, the cover up of video from January 6th. You had people who had their bank accounts examined to see if they were even in the area.
Unbelievable.
And this is like what again, that type of thing, cameras everywhere, Big Brother, right? Big Brother's watching was something.
And locked up without a trial for a year or more.
Yeah.
Locked up. Like, these people are just people that wandered into the building, and they're locked up for those poor people, man. I hope they get compensated someday.
But that's what dictators do. I mean, that's what we hear, Saddam Hussein did, and this person and that person did. I'm not saying Saddam was, he was murdering people, hanging people, but still there's a lot of similarities here, tremendously. So I want to ask again. I do want to get personal a little bit, but I do want to take the title of your book is My Family, a Cult, and Trump. So you're a big fan of Trump. I am as well. I think he has done more for our country than virtually any president, at least in our recent, our lifetime. And so tell me what has been intriguing to you about Trump.
I think I call him the most important president in the history of the republic, because he had the balls to stand up to the system, right? And when he did it, it got a lot of other people. It sort of broke the mold a little bit, It's like in my book, I use an example like the emperor has no clothes. He's the little kid in the crowd that says, "Mommy, why is that guy not wearing any clothes?" And then all the people start to think, "Yeah, he's not wearing any clothes," and that's it sort of broke the bubble. Now the problem is when you're in a cult, you join a team, right? So if that was a real story, and what Trump does is point out the corruption and stuff, the people that are actually corrupt are not going to say, "Oh yeah, you got us." They're going to fight him tooth and nail, and that's exactly what they've done for years now. Poor guy, man. This guy's tough. He's tough as hell, but I just hope nothing happens to him, because there's so many dark forces aligned against him, very powerful dark forces, and it's really scary. Really, I don't know.
Yeah. It tells you how much they fear him, that they would, I mean, all the charges, whether it was Russia collusion, January 6th, the uh, phone call with Zelensky that he was impeached over, the and two indictments that he's had. All these
Mhm.
things are absurd. Even outright, the Russia collusion was made up literally out of thin air, and all the people involved knew it.
That's what I mean about people's mindset when they're in this team cult attitude,
Mhm.
right? All the evidence in the world is available to convict Biden, to convict Hunter Biden. All the stuff, the laptop's real, they buried it, but all the
Mhm.
stuff they made up about Trump was all made up. That's what I mean about the rule of law and evidence. It's
Yeah.
just gone out the window. They don't care. And this guy Bezmenov, he warned about that. He says once people are bought into the narrative, it's sort of like it's like you cheer for your own team no matter what.
Yep.
But it's great for sports. But when it comes to politics, it's really dangerous, man.
Yeah,
So
it's funny you say that. I've said that many times, is that it's like, it's like you're loyal to the Democrat Party and even the Republican Party for a lot of people,
mhm.
simply like they're a sports team, and you're going to side with them no matter what happens. And this is, as you said, it's not a sports team.
You know
So
what?
I want to ask. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, you know what I found, Jerry, is labels. It's a tactic I think misinformation specialists use. They label everything like the right and the left. When they can call you extreme right, um, in people's minds, what you say doesn't matter. You're extreme right, and therefore you're bad. Or even socialist, communist, you're bad. I hate these labels. People are all different. They're all complex people, you know. Instead of focusing on the issues, they can simply say, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're far right. And that negates anything you might have to say, whether it's, I mean, there's really people out there like mechanics and electricians and stuff like that that have really good points, but they're just written off because they're far right, they're far left. It's these labels. I think it's a tactic that they use. I don't believe in far right. I don't believe in left. I don't believe in communist, socialist, Democrat, Republican. I mean, the Democrats and the Republicans have both been bad. I look at the
Yes, for sure.
policies. It's the policies, and Trump's 100% trying to fix the country.
Hmm.
And look at the grief he's getting, man, or
Yeah.
God.
So
So
let's go back into a little bit of the personal to, with your experience. We touched on it a little bit in the beginning, your experience, and, how did you become susceptible to being in a cult and being in a cult for 5 years? And then I would love to know what got you out of it.
it's funny. I had a little brother, 19 years old. He was killed on a motorcycle. It was he just got the bike, and he was. There's no way to bring him back. I couldn't pray for it, so I went out in the country where my family house was, right, and I looked up on the stars and I prayed really deeply from the heart. And the next day, this guy went to work the next day, and the next day, this friend of mine told me he heard about this seminar. If you want to come with me, let's go to this seminar. I'm really sorry about your brother, and blah blah blah. Anyway, it was 5 years of indoctrination in hell, but it taught me how to really deeply pray and meditate, which is pretty much the same thing, I think. And I had some really great experiences on my own just with this deep meditation, and it taught me how to pray. And what I prayed for in the country in that night was not to bring my brother back. I couldn't, but I just wanted to pray for some answers as to where he was. And I think over those 5 years, it hit me over the head, and it was a nightmare. But I wouldn't change it because it taught me a lot of things that probably they didn't expect to teach, like human nature, courage, meditation.
Mhm.
Like I don't believe what we see around us is the reality. I think there's a spiritual side of us that's the reality, and it sort of brought that home. But at the end of it, after 5 years, I'm just like a vegetable. You like you're believing everything they say. You sort of walk through life like a zombie, right? But I started to date this girl outside the cult, and she was a nurse, really hard-nosed, tough girl, and kind of sexy. So I spent a lot of time with this girl, and she was really smart. She started to talk to me about, ask me questions about it, but not in a confrontational way. Because any confrontation, you get your back up and you start to defend your team and tell her to screw off.
Mm-hmm.
But she did it in a really nice way. And I mean, as a group, we invested some money in something, and she said, "Oh, that's nice investment. Oh, it's good for your future. Can you get the money out again?" And I had to think,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. She started me on the path of thinking to myself. And pretty soon I was getting angry, and I stood up to the second in command one day, and just with anger. And he never had that before, and some other people started questioning, sort of like Trump does to the U.S. Mm-hmm. And other people started questioning when they saw my anger, saw the things I said to him, and they started to stand up to him. The next day, this guy resigned, and the cult from there pretty much fell apart. It was on its last legs anyway. Like at one point, there were thousands of people in it, but towards the end, the people were dropping off. There weren't as many people coming into it. Cults and that kind of the New Age kind of stuff was big in the 70s, but it was kind of dropping off in the 80s. It was the late 70s when this happened. But yeah, I got out of it thanks to a girl. Got into it with my brother. Got out of it because of a girl. So that's what happened.
Because yeah. So, looking at it from the perspective of people that are in a sense brainwashed or in the cult today, and buy into a belief system that is contrary to fact and evidence, even if it's right in front of their face, as you said, they're being lied to and manipulated. How do we get people? Obviously, it doesn't happen overnight, but how do we approach those on that side that are that ingrained in this cult of government?
The most important thing is Elon Musk, what he did with Twitter. I think that's the best thing that could have happened last year or this year, when he took over Twitter and let everybody have a voice. And then you're starting to see all the disinformation, all the government's input into the information, the misinformation. And ironically, they call what we have to say misinformation, and they're the experts in misinformation. They're the ones pushing it. So it's kind of ironic. But yeah, now people aren't banned from saying the truth, which is great. It's a start. But thank God for Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Look, I say in my book too, also, Donald Trump's aggressive, he's arrogant, but he's the perfect guy. I mean, we need a warrior to fight these people. I just hope they take care of him. I'm worried about it. Mm-hmm. You know what I was thinking is, I don't know how your system works, but I don't know if you're following RFK Jr.
Yes.
What he has to say. I think Trump would do well. I don't know if he can do this, but if he runs as a running mate, have RFK Jr. Liberal, or
is the vice president.
That's a vice president. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I mean, he RFK's an intriguing guy. I've listened to him, known about him for years. There's things I disagree with him on, but just what he's doing lately, whether his political career goes anywhere or not, or however it goes, he's having an impact because he's going after the system. He's speaking truth to power. He's fighting back. And at the end of the day, I believe if we get people out of this cult, in a sense, they're going to go to the truth.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not always going to be voting Republican, because, as you said, Republicans often are lousy. We've had a lot of bad Republican presidents, but it's going to at least take them away from the cult. So I like what he's doing, for sure.
Yeah, I hope so. Another thing to break out of the corruption, I think this is on a totally different track. I mean, I wrote the book a couple of years ago or more. Mm-hmm. I think it's before I started it, just after Trump was elected, I think. Mm-hmm. And I finished it before he lost the last time. So I put the last chapter in there. I said I had faith in the American people, their sense of freedom. I think they're going to pull out of it. But I think, just to go off track a bit, I never talked about this, but I think Bitcoin is actually is a good tool too.
Mm-hmm.
If people can adopt Bitcoin, you can't. Once you fix the money supply, you're going to fix a lot of the corruption. So, I mean, that's totally off the topic, but I think between Twitter, Trump, Bitcoin, there's hope. There's a lot of hope out there, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know how to
it's the
break
realization.
Yeah, I don't know how to break people out of it other than that, but
Yeah.
I think it's a slow thing. I think you're seeing it though, like you know, the stuff that Disney's putting out, they're just ridiculous movies, you know, just for the sake of being woke. They're losing money hand over fist right now. So I think there's hope. I think there's hope.
Yeah.
You got to believe in the spirit of the American people. And really, it's not even just the American people. It's worldwide. Everybody's watching what's happening there, because if the U.S. falls, man, where else is there? There's no one else strong enough democratically to stand up to the corruption and evil in the world. So
yeah, I agree 100%. I think Trump is, you know, love him or hate his personality. I like it, but you know, if he's not your style, you have to admit that he has done and is doing good things and right things, and that has an impact on Canada, because Trudeau is a disaster for you guys up there. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. He's he's an absolute mess. But you know, ultimately, I agree that what we're seeing with Disney and all the transgender and men could get pregnant kind of stuff, that's you know, drag queen story hour for kindergartners. I think it's becoming difficult to even be around them.
Yeah, Democrats in Congress are arguing about what's a woman, what's a man. Like, give me a break. Like, it's so stupid. Really? What do you do? What do you do?
Yeah, that's it. You know, sadly, I mean, this, I believe that it's sin, and sin ultimately destroys itself. But while it's doing it, it destroys a lot of people in its path, so to speak. And so, you know, it will destroy itself, but there's going to be a lot of residual damage. So, Michael Peyton, how can people connect with you and get your book? Is there you have a website or a place people can go and follow you?
I'm 70 years old. I don't have a website. I use email. I guess Austin McCauley is my publisher. They put the book out, so they can get the book on Amazon, My Family, a Cult, and Trump. And it's out there. Yeah, unfortunately, I just joined Twitter, but I don't use it. So
yeah, no, that's really okay. So I mean, in today's day and age, all you have to do is put in your name, Michael Peyton, Peyton, for those that are just listening. You could also go to you know, do a search for, you know, quote, My Family, Occult, and Trump, and Michael's name, and you're going to find, you know, how to get it. It's phenomenal. This is what you're saying is so right on, and I think we have to have an understanding of why people are, you know, so, you know, ingrained in their beliefs in spite of fact, truth, and logic right in front of their face, because we got to get out of this, or we're going to be destroyed, quite literally and figuratively, for sure. So, Michael Peyton, thanks so much for coming on. This was a really, really great conversation.
Oh, thanks so much, Jay. Really nice to meet you, and God bless you, buddy. Really.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, and thank all of you for listening to this episode of Fides Podcast. Please check out all my podcasts and all the different podcast apps on YouTube, on Rumble, on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, on rightamericamedia.com, and on WHKradio.com under their podcast. So thank you so much again for listening, and we'll see you next time.